These are the hidden costs of Rolex ownership that nobody warns you about until it's too late. While most people obsess over getting their hands on a Submariner or GMT Master, they completely ignore the financial reality that hits years down the road, the service bill that can cost more than some people's entire watch collection. You think you own a Rolex, but what you really own is an expensive subscription to Swiss maintenance fees. Those fees have traps built into them that even experienced collectors fall into repeatedly. Let's start with what Rolex actually tells you. They recommend servicing your watch every 10 years, and they offer a 5-year warranty on everything sold since July 2015. Sounds reasonable, right? A decade between services means low maintenance costs spread over time. But here is what they do not advertise. The 10-year recommendation assumes you are barely wearing the watch. If you actually use your Rolex daily, like most owners do, you are looking at service intervals of 5 to 7 years. And when that time comes, you are about to discover that the $800 base quote you get is just the beginning of a very expensive conversation. That initial service quote operates exactly like a contractor's estimate for home renovation. It is the absolute minimum, assuming everything goes perfectly and nothing needs replacement. But once a watchmaker opens up your Rolex, the real assessment begins. Suddenly you hear about worn gaskets, scratched crystals, damaged crowns, and aging, luminous material that must be replaced for proper function. For modern movements like the caliber 3235 in your Submariner or the caliber 4130 in your Daytona, this assessment can reveal worn parachrom hairsprings or compromised chronergy escapements that were not visible during external inspection. Here's where the first trap reveals itself. Rolex does not just recommend replacing these parts, they often make it mandatory. Multiple owners report being told their watch cannot be serviced unless they agree to dial and hand replacements, even when the original components are still functional. The company's official policy states that any component not meeting their functional and aesthetic specifications gets replaced with genuine parts, whether you want it or not. One owner brought his 30-year-old Submariner in for a routine service and was told the dial and hands had to be replaced as a non-negotiable condition. When he asked what they could do without those replacements, the RSC offered to fix only his bracelet, take it or leave it. His choice was simple: pay for parts he did not want or get no service at all. The cost impact is brutal. A standard movement overhaul might start at $800, but add a new dial for $510, new hands for $200, a crystal for $300, and various gaskets and seals, and you are suddenly looking at $1,500 to $2,000. For complex models like the Daytona, Sea Dweller, or Sky Dweller, total bills can reach $2,800 or more when extensive parts replacement kicks in. But here is where it gets worse. Those replacement parts are not optional upgrades. Recent supply chain disruptions and new tariffs on Swiss imports have driven parts costs up by as much as 30%. A sapphire crystal that costs service centers $450 now runs closer to $650. Rolex passes these increases directly to customers, meaning service bills are rising faster than the general inflation rate. And speaking of costs you do not see coming, let us talk shipping. Most people forget that getting your Rolex serviced means sending it away for weeks or months. Round-trip insured shipping typically runs $150 to $300 depending on your location and the service center. That is pure overhead on top of everything else. The time factor creates its own problems. Official Rolex service centers quote 6 to 12 weeks turnaround, with many customers reporting waits closer to 3 months. You are not just paying for service, you are paying rent on a watch you cannot wear for a quarter of the year. Independent watchmakers like Bob's Watches service division or specialized shops can often complete the same work in 2 to 4 weeks for 30 to 50% less. But choosing independent service creates the second major trap: warranty voiding. Any third-party service work immediately cancels your remaining Rolex warranty, even if the independent watchmaker uses genuine parts and follows factory procedures. This forces owners into an impossible choice: stay with official service and pay premium prices with long wait times, or save money with independence and lose warranty protection. For newer watches still under the 5-year warranty, this choice is particularly painful. Then there is the parts retention policy that shocks most owners. When Rolex replaces components during service, they keep the original parts. Those parts are retained. You do not get them back, ever. The company's explanation is that returned parts could enable counterfeit watch assembly, but this policy has devastating implications for vintage watch owners. Consider this horror story. An owner brought in a 1970s Rolex with a Tiffany & Co. dial for service. He approved all recommended work, including dial service. When the watch returned, the dial no longer said Tiffany & Co. Rolex had replaced it with a standard dial, destroying thousands of dollars in collector value, and they kept the original Tiffany dial. This brings us to the vintage watch trap, perhaps the cruelest of all. Replacing the dial in hands in an early 1960s Submariner can decrease its value by more than $10,000, even though the service work might only cost $1,500. A Paul Newman Daytona owner faces an even more devastating choice. Service work that might cost $3,000 could destroy $50,000 or more in collector value. Collectors report spending $3,000 on service only to see their watch's value drop 20%, because it now has modern service parts instead of original patina and components. The forced modernization is systematic. Original tritium luminous material gets replaced with modern Superlumi Nova, aged dials with sought-after patina get swapped for pristine service dials, worn but authentic hands get replaced with perfect modern versions. Each replacement makes the watch more functional but less valuable to collectors. Rolex's position is that they are restoring the watch to original factory specifications. Collectors disagree because original for vintage watches means original components, not modern parts made to the same specifications. It is the difference between restoring a classic car with period-correct parts and installing modern equivalents that work better but destroy authenticity. The 35-year cutoff adds another layer of complexity. Rolex guarantees factory service for watches up to 35 years after discontinuation, but only if parts remain available. For truly vintage pieces, this often means a choice between no service at all or complete parts replacement that destroys collector value. Independent specialists who understand vintage Rolex can often service older watches while preserving original components. But you lose the factory warranty, and you also lose access to certain genuine parts that Rolex restricts to authorized service centers. The pricing structure itself reveals how Rolex views service revenue. While they position service as customer care, the profit margins suggest otherwise. Profit is the lens. Forum members report that full service costs have doubled from the historical $400 to $700 range to today's $800 to $1,200 baseline. This increase is well above general inflation. Doubled is the headline. With Rolex's January 2026 price increase averaging 7% across their catalog, these service costs are expected to rise even further in the coming year. Expected to rise. Some of this reflects genuine cost increases. Swiss labor costs have risen, parts complexity has increased, and modern Rolex movements require more specialized tools and training. But service also generates recurring revenue from every watch ever sold, creating incentives to expand service requirements rather than minimize them. Recurring revenue is a driver. The warranty terms reveal this strategy clearly. Rolex's 5-year warranty specifically excludes normal wear and tear, but does not clearly define what constitutes normal wear versus damage requiring service. This ambiguity allows service centers to classify many issues as outside warranty coverage, generating additional revenue. Ambiguity matters. Independent watchmakers offer a reality check on these costs. The same overhaul and crystal replacement that Rolex quotes at $800 might cost $270 from a qualified independent, $200 for movement service, $50 for the crystal, and $20 for luminous material refresh. The massive price difference reflects both Rolex's premium positioning and their control over genuine parts distribution. Independents show the gap, but even independent service has evolved. The best independent Rolex specialists now charge significantly more than general watch repair shops because Rolex expertise commands premium pricing. A certified master watchmaker specializing in Rolex might charge $400 to $600 for movement service that a general repair shop would do for $200 to $300. Specialists cost more. The service trap extends beyond individual repairs to long-term ownership costs. A Rolex purchased for $8,000 will likely require $2,000 to $3,000 in service costs over 15 years of regular wear. That is a 25 to 40% increase in total ownership costs that most buyers never calculate. Ownership costs add up. For daily wear watches, these costs compound quickly. A GMT Master worn regularly might need service every 5 years instead of 10. Over 20 years, that is 4 services at $1,200 each, adding $4,800 to the ownership cost. Suddenly, that $10,000 watch has cost $15,000 to own and maintain. Compound is the effect. The psychological impact amplifies the financial pain. Owners develop emotional attachment to their Rolex, making service decisions feel personal rather than purely economic. When Rolex says your watch needs $800 in parts replacement, refusing feels like neglecting something valuable rather than making a rational cost-benefit decision. Emotional attachment matters. This emotional leverage works in Rolex's favor. Few owners want to risk their watch's reliability by refusing recommended service, even when the recommendations seem excessive. The fear of malfunction or water damage overrides rational analysis of whether every replacement is truly necessary. Fear drives compliance. Recent market conditions have added new complications. The secondary Rolex market correction of 2023 and 2024 reduced values for many models, making service costs a larger percentage of current market value. Owners who bought at peak prices now face service bills that represent 10 to 20% of what their watch is worth today. Market pressure increases the risk. For flippers who bought Rolex watches as short-term investments, service becomes a trap that destroys profit margins. Trap is the word. A watch purchased for $15,000 that drops to $12,000 in the secondary market and requires $1,500 in service creates a total loss scenario. Many investors did not anticipate this. Looking ahead, several trends suggest service costs will continue rising. Rolex's January 2026 price increase averaged 7% across their catalog, with precious metal models seeing larger jumps. These increases typically flow through to service pricing after a lag of 6 to 12 months. The ongoing effects of tariffs on Swiss goods add another cost pressure. While Rolex initially absorbed some tariff costs, they are increasingly passing them through to consumers via both watch prices and service pricing. The 15% US tariff on Swiss-made goods directly impacts parts costs at American service centers. Production changes also affect service accessibility. While Rolex has expanded manufacturing capacity from 1 million to 1.3 million watches annually, service capacity has not grown proportionally. Longer wait times at service centers create additional frustration for owners who need their watches repaired quickly. The allocation system evolution adds complexity for owners considering service timing. With some Oyster Steel sports models becoming more available at authorized dealers, the calculus of service versus replacement has shifted. Why spend $2,000 servicing a worn GMT when you might finally get allocated a new one? This brings us to the fundamental question, what are you really buying when you purchase a Rolex? The marketing emphasizes heritage, craftsmanship, and precision, but the ownership reality is a subscription to expensive Swiss maintenance with terms and conditions that heavily favor the manufacturer. Every Rolex comes with hidden ongoing costs that dwarf those of comparable products. A mechanical watch requires periodic service, but few brands make service as expensive or restrictive as Rolex. The combination of high costs, forced parts replacement, parts retention, and warranty voiding for independent service creates a system designed to extract maximum revenue from every watch ever sold. Understanding these traps does not necessarily mean avoiding Rolex ownership, but it does mean making informed decisions. If you are considering a vintage Rolex, factor in the potential value destruction from mandatory service updates. If you want a daily wear watch, calculate the lifetime service costs alongside the purchase price. If you are buying as an investment, understand how service requirements might affect resale values. The Rolex service trap exists because the company can make it exist. Their market position, parts control, and warranty policies create a captive customer base that has few alternatives when service becomes necessary. Recognizing this dynamic is the first step toward navigating it successfully. Your Rolex might be a symbol of success, but it is also a long-term financial commitment that extends far beyond the initial purchase. The question is not whether you can afford to buy a Rolex, it is whether you can afford to own one for the next 20 years.